Right now, somewhere in your family's past, probably tucked inside a dusty photograph your grandmother never threw away, there's someone who once got paid real money to wake strangers up before sunrise. Not with an alarm clock, not with a shout, but by tapping on their window or firing dried peas at it in the dark. Someone else in your family tree might have guarded public toilets like they were Fort Knox, charging a penny just to let people in. And there's a decent chance at least one of your ancestors was professionally kissed by a man covered head to toe in chimney soot. These weren't jokes. They weren't side hustles. They were real jobs, careers that fed families, paid rent, and quietly kept Britain running. Tonight, we're going back to industrial Britain to see what one of those jobs actually felt like from the inside. So get comfortable first, really comfortable. Pillows sorted, blanket situation handled, because where we're going, you'll want to be settled in. Your eyes open to darkness, complete darkness. The kind of black that presses against your face like a wool blanket soaked in cold smoke. For a moment, you don't know where you are. Then the cold hits, seeping through the thin walls of your Manchester terrace house, creeping under the door, settling into your bones like it has nowhere else to be. And then you hear it. Tap, tap, tap. 3 sharp sounds cutting clean through the silence of 2:30 in the morning. You already know what this is. You've heard it every morning for years. It's Mary Waters. If you don't get to the window in the next few seconds, she'll keep tapping until you do. You drag yourself out of bed. The floorboards bite at your bare feet. You shuffle forward and press your palm against the cold glass, just enough for her to see the movement through the thin curtains. That's the signal. That's all she needs. By the time you pull your hand away, she's already moving on, footsteps fading down the cobblestone street, swallowed by the dark. Mary's been doing this for 30 years. 30 years of waking before dawn, 30 years of rain, cold, and streets so dark they barely feel real. She raised her son on this work, paid for his schooling, kept the household going when her husband's back gave out and he couldn't work anymore. All by waking people up. She's a knocker-upper. That's what they were called. And for nearly 100 years, from the heart of the Industrial Revolution through to the 1950s, knocker-uppers were essential. Without them, factories didn't run, mills stood empty, wages disappeared. You dress in the dark. No candle, no light. Trousers first, still damp from yesterday. The shirt rough against your skin. Boots that pinch, but replacements cost more than you earn in a week. By 4:30, you need to be at the cotton mill. By 4:31, you may as well not show up at all. This is why you pay Mary 3 pence a week. Not because you're lazy, because you're afraid. Missing a shift doesn't mean a warning, it means lost wages. And in this era, no wages can mean no food. Outside, Mary keeps moving. Tap, tap, tap. 80 houses, 80 different wake-up times, all memorized, no notebook, no list. Some knocker-uppers used bamboo poles. Others threw soft hammers at windows with frightening accuracy. Some rattled drums. And some, incredibly, used pea shooters. There's a real photograph from 1931 of a woman in East London, cheeks puffed, firing dried peas at a bedroom window before dawn. That was her job. As doors open along the street, workers emerge into the cold. Breath turns to mist. Nobody talks much, but there's a quiet understanding. You are all woken. You're all heading to work. You're all trying to survive. In mining towns, the system went even further.
collieries hired official knocker-uppers and built slate boards into the walls of miners' houses. Each night you'd write your shift time in chalk.
Long before you ever see him, he knows exactly which houses want milk today and which ones left a folded note asking for extra cream. The milkman is coming, and you're about to meet him. But before he arrives, let me take you somewhere else for a moment. Let me show you what it feels like to be on the other side of that bamboo pole. You're Mary Waters now. It's 2:15 in the morning, and you've already been awake for an hour. Your husband is still asleep in the bed you just left, his breathing heavy and uneven, that cough never fully disappearing no matter how many winters pass. Your son is grown now, educated, working a respectable office job somewhere warm and dry. You paid for that education, every 3 pence collected, every dark street walked, every window tapped. You pull on your coat, thin, patched, but still the warmest thing you own. Your boots are worn smooth at the soles, which actually helps on the cobblestones, less grip but fewer slips. You've fallen before, in ice, in rain. Once you sprained your ankle and still finished the route because 80 people were counting on you. 80 families needed to be at work on time. The bamboo pole waits by the door, 12 feet of flexible wood, a wire fixture at the end. You've replaced that wire 3 times this year. The cold makes it brittle. You take it in your hand now, feeling the familiar balance, muscle memory built over 30 years. Outside, the street is empty. Gas lamps burn low, barely lighting the road. You can't really see the houses across the way, but you don't need to. You know every loose stone, every gate that squeaks, every dog that growls if you pass too close. First stop, number 14, the Davies family. 3 clean taps, sharp enough to wake them, soft enough not to wake the street. You wait, count to 5. There it is, movement behind the curtain, a hand against the glass. You move on. Number 18, the Fletchers. Mrs. Fletcher always takes longer, so you give 4 taps instead of 3. Same payment as everyone else, but some people need a little more encouragement. Number 22, the Harrison boys. 2 brothers, 1 room, 1 knock. Efficient. Street after street, house after house. Your feet follow the route without thinking, and your mind drifts. You think about the money you'll collect this week, about your husband's cough, about whether these boots will survive another winter. By the time the sky starts to pale, not daylight, just the idea of it, you're finished. 3 hours walking, arms aching, feet numb. But 80 households are awake now. The factories will run on time today because of you. You head home, slip off your boots, crawl back into bed beside your husband. Sleep takes you almost instantly. You'll wake around noon, eat, rest, and then do it all again tomorrow. That was the life of a knocker-upper. That was the rhythm of it. Thousands of people moving through darkness while the rest of the country slept, keeping the wheels of industry turning, one tapped window at a time. And now, as you settle back into your own comfortable present, another sound grows louder, the sound that replaced the tap. A low electric hum, the gentle clink of glass bottles in wire crates. The milkman is here. His float hums down the street, barely louder than a whisper,
And if you listen closely, you hear it, that sound that defined British mornings for nearly a century. Let me tell you about him. It's 6 in the morning now. The world is properly awake. The knocker-upper's tap feels like hours ago, even though it's only been 4. You've already worked half a shift at the mill. Your hands ache, your back complains. But you pause at the door. That float again, that sound. There's Steve, same man who's been delivering here longer than you can remember. 3-wheeled electric float, open sides, no doors, built so he can hop on and off without stopping. Quiet enough for dawn, reliable enough for routine. He spots you watching and gives a small wave. Doesn't stop. Can't. 200 houses before noon, and he's already behind because Mrs. Patterson wanted to talk about her hip surgery. You watch him work. It's almost like a dance. Stop, hop off. 2 bottles in one hand, empties collected, fresh milk down, back on the float. Gone. Steve's been doing this route for 40 years, watching children grow up, move away, come back with children of their own, delivering milk to 3 generations of the same families. Some people swear they could tell the time by him. 7:15 at the corner, 7:20 by the greengrocer, 7:25 at your door. But here's what most people never understood. It was never just about the milk.
And might need checking on. There's a system to it. The milk bottles you leave on doorsteps aren't just deliveries, they're signals. If you come back the next morning and yesterday's bottles are still sitting there untouched, something's wrong. Maybe they're away visiting family. Maybe they forgot to bring them in. Or maybe Mrs. Chen, 84 years old, living alone since her husband died, has fallen and can't get to the door. You've found 3 people like that over the years. 3 times you noticed bottles piling up. 3 times you knocked. 3 times there was no answer. You called someone to check. 2 were fine, away longer than planned, milk not canceled. But the 3rd was old Bernard on Ashworth Street. He'd had a stroke in his kitchen. The doctors said if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't raised the alarm, he would have died there on the linoleum floor. That's the job. That's what people don't see. You're not just delivering dairy products. You're the one who notices, the one who pays attention when nobody else does. The money isn't great. It never has been. You start at 4 in the morning, sometimes earlier in summer, when the milk needs to be on doorsteps before the sun warms it. You finish around noon if everything goes smoothly. Later if it doesn't. Customers leave payment in the empty bottles, coins tucked underneath, or little envelopes with exact change. Sometimes they leave notes. 2 extra pints today, Steve. My sister's visiting. Just 1 today. Jim's in hospital. Could you check on number 42? Haven't seen Mrs. Okonkwo in days. You read those notes and you know what's happening in people's lives. You know who's celebrating. You know who's struggling. You notice when a house goes from 2 names on the order to 1. You notice when cream and eggs get added. Probably a special breakfast. Maybe good news. In 1964, they even started giving out awards for this job. Personality Milkman of the Year, they called it. That year, a man named George Jones from Llandudno in Wales won. His picture ended up in newspapers across the country. He traveled to London to collect his prize at the National Dairy Centre on Charing Cross Road, like he was receiving a medal from the Queen herself. Think about that for a moment. a national competition to find the friendliest milkman in Britain. That's how important this job was. That's how central these people were to daily life. The floats themselves were something special too. By 1967, Britain had more electric vehicles on its roads than any other country in the world, and most of them were milk floats. Not because anyone was thinking about the environment, simply because milkmen needed to be quiet. You can't rumble down a residential street at 5 in the morning in a diesel truck without waking everyone up and losing customers. So they built silent machines instead. Batteries charged overnight at the depot. Top speed maybe 15 miles an hour, faster than you'd ever need. Designed for one thing only: hopping on and off, bottle to doorstep, doorstep to bottle, never fully stopping. Sometimes kids helped on the rounds. If you grew up then, you remember it. Summer holidays, early mornings, asking if you could ride along, sitting on the back of the float with your legs dangling, jumping off to carry bottles to doorsteps. No wages, maybe a free bottle of chocolate milk if you did well. But the thrill was enough. There was a milkman everyone called Dirty Dick. Nobody remembers why. He wasn't particularly dirty, just one of those names that sticks. Kids fought for the chance to help him on Sundays. Best morning of the week. But time moves on. It's 1978 now. Your float is rusting in places. The batteries don't hold charge like they used to. The dairy talks about replacements, but money's tight. People are buying milk from supermarkets, plastic bottles, big cold cases. Cheaper, convenient. Grab it with the weekly shop. You've lost 40 customers this year alone. 40 doorsteps that used to wait for you each morning. Now they're empty. The kitchen windows that used to wave at you are dark. The notes asking for extra cream come less often. It's not personal, you know that. Refrigerators got bigger, better. People don't need fresh milk delivered every day anymore. But still, 40 years on these streets, 40 years watching children grow up, watching old neighbors fade away. You were there through snowstorms and power cuts, through the heat wave of '76, when you started at 3 in the morning just to keep the milk cool. And now, slowly, quietly, the world is changing again.
Delivered before it spoiled. Mrs. Patterson on Elm Street, the one who talks your ear off about her hip, she's been your customer since 1965. Her daughter was born that year. You delivered milk to the house the very morning she came home from the hospital. Now that daughter has children of her own. They've moved to Birmingham, and Mrs. Patterson is alone in that house with no one to talk to except you. So yes, you stand there and listen. 15 minutes about her hip, because that's part of the job too. It always has been. By the 1990s, most of the milkmen were gone. The floats disappeared from British streets. The clink of bottles at dawn faded from daily sound to distant memory. A few holdouts carried on, mostly in smaller towns where people still valued the personal touch, but the golden age was over. The supermarkets had won. There's something quietly sad about that. Not just the loss of a job, but the loss of connection. Someone who knew your name. Someone who noticed when you didn't answer your door. Someone who could tell you were struggling just by the notes left in an empty bottle. You're back in your own bed now, your own time. The milkman doesn't come to your street anymore. Probably hasn't for decades. You buy milk in plastic jugs from a supermarket, and you don't know the name of a single person who works there. But somewhere in Britain, a few milk floats are still humming along. A few milkmen still read the notes, still notice the bottles that don't get collected, still keep an eye on the Mrs. Pattersons of the world, quietly making sure someone's checking in. And as the morning wears on, as Steve finishes his route and heads back to the depot, another sound begins to echo through the streets. A different call, a different kind of worker. A man with a horse and cart shouting two words every British child once knew. Ragbone. You can hear him coming now. And what he offers, the strange barter system rattling in the back of that cart, it's something you really need to see to believe. But before we leave Steve behind, there's one more thing you need to understand about this job, about what it cost and what it gave. Come back to the depot with me. It's 4 in the morning, pitch black. The cold burns your lungs if you breathe too fast. You're Steve again, 23 years old, new to the job, still learning the routes. The depot smells like sour milk and exhaust. Dozens of floats line up in the dark, plugged into charging stations that hum and click softly. Other milkmen load crates, check waters. Nobody talks much. Too early. Just bottles clinking, trolley wheels squeaking on concrete. Your round sheet is pinned to a clipboard. 218 houses today. You've got it memorized now, but at first you checked it constantly. Left on Ashworth, right on Maple, straight through Canterbury Road. Mrs. Chen, 2 pints, full cream. The Johnsons, skimmed. The Petersons, gold top. You keep forgetting. Loading the float is an art. Heavy crates go on the bottom or the whole thing tips on corners. Bottles face inward so they don't crack. Eggs in a separate carrier. One bad bump and you're delivering omelets instead of breakfast. Batteries charged, milk loaded. You climb onto the float and it dips under your weight. These things are barely more than a platform with wheels and a motor. Your knees will ache by 30. Your back will never quite be right again. That's the price, and you pay it without thinking. The streets are empty. Just you, the float, and the dark. Street lamps paint yellow pools onto wet pavement. A cat watches from a garden wall. The whole city sleeps while you move through it, a quiet ghost carrying milk. First delivery. You hop off. The doorstep is slick with dew. You leave the bottles, pick up the empties, and notice a note tucked underneath. Morning, Steve. Could we try Jersey milk this week? Peter thinks it might help his stomach. You've never met Peter, but now you know about his stomach. You'll remember to bring Jersey milk tomorrow. You'll ask next week if it helped. That's the job. Hundreds of small intimacies, lives you brush against without ever fully entering. You know breakfast habits and health problems and family dramas, but you couldn't tell anyone the color of their living room walls. It's a strange closeness, surface level, but deep. The sun starts rising around 6 in summer, later in winter. Lights flick on, doors open, men head to work, children to school. People wave, say good morning. You become part of the landscape, like the postbox, like the sunrise. But nothing lasts forever. The supermarkets came in quietly first, then all at once. Cheaper milk, plastic bottles, no notes, no names, just shelves that never noticed if you didn't show up. And slowly the milk floats disappeared. No more soft electric hum at dawn, no more glass clinking on doorsteps, no one keeping half an eye on the street anymore. But as Steve locks up at the depot and heads home, another sound drifts through the neighborhood. A voice, low, drawn out, familiar in a way you didn't even realize you remembered. Ragbone. A man moves down the street with a horse and cart, calling out like he always done, offering a strange old deal, rags for bones, bottles for scraps, a bit of this for a bit of that. It sounds mad now, almost fake, but once everyone knew what it meant. Kids would run to the door clutching old shoes or bits of metal. Nan would hand over broken crockery and say, "Go on then, see what he'll give you." It was all part of it. People passing through the street, not just for work, but to check in, to be seen, to be known. And that's the thing, really. It wasn't the milk, it wasn't the bottles, it wasn't even the jobs. It was the way the streets used to feel alive even before sunrise. Someone always awake, someone always paying attention, someone who knew if something was a bit off. Now you're lying in your own bed, warm, comfortable, probably got an alarm set on your phone, maybe 3 just in case. You don't need a knock on your window. You don't need peas hitting the glass at 2:30 in the morning. But once upon a time, people did. And because of that, factories ran, families ate, old neighbors were checked on. Children grew up knowing the names of the people who passed their doors every day. So yeah, those jobs sound fake now. A woman paid to tap windows, a man delivering milk in the dark, someone shouting rag and bone into the morning fog. But they were real. And for a long while, they were the quiet heartbeat of Britain. Now the street is still. The float is gone. The bottles are gone. The call fades into memory. And all that's left is the sound of the day properly beginning, somewhere far away. So rest easy. No one's knocking. No one's calling. You've got nowhere to be just yet. Good night.